And here we are. We are live and ready to go once again for the Jay and Rob Toy Show. I am joined by a couple people tonight. But of course, the commander of cool himself, Jay Bartlett, is in the house. Let me bring him on. There's the man. How you doing?
Look at my Mickey Mouse camera compared to you. Wow. And that is quite the hat. That is quite the hat.
No, this is style, Jay. I know you're trying to hack the planet and hack my style, but we're trying to bring it up a notch here. We're trying to raise the bar
I know.
on everything.
So what we're going to do next week, I think we're going to do let's do some Motley Crue makeup. I think that'll look really good. You could do like Paul Stanley.
No, that's me. This is what this is. This is me, Jay.
It's great.
Get on board, or you find another co-host. What do you think? Are you in?
I like it, man. I like the hat. I think it suits you. It's very Costanza.
It's real fur. It's not pigeon. Okay.
Nice. I love it, man. I love the scarf. That's not yours, but that's okay.
we don't know that.
Well, I'm pretty sure. I got an idea. I got a pretty good idea.
Tonight, we're joined by Brian Lower, a.k.a. Hooded Cobra Commander 788, which is really cool. I've been watching his videos all day just to get caught up, and I find myself laughing in different corners of the basement because I love his dry sense of humor and his quick cuts.
Yeah.
He'll talk about something ridiculous. So I'm excited to pick his brain about everything that's going on with his figure reviews. And man, talk about a daunting task, dedicating your channel to reviewing all things G.I. Joe.
Yeah. So, you and I have been collecting our whole lives. Some franchises more than others over the years. And when we were writing this project, Action Figure Adventure, I was tasked with really diving into each of the franchises. And I'm very knowledgeable on Joe. However, I was looking at YouTube and I stumbled across Brian's page, and instantly I was hooked. And I've pretty much watched all his videos. They're so entertaining, and he takes such time and he puts so much love into his content, and you can really tell. So yeah, G.I. Joe expert, 100%. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I've got a lot of catching up to do, but he had just recently posted a figure review that I'm excited, and I want to save it for later. I want to talk to him. Of course, I want to get some housekeeping done. If you're listening on the audio side, give us a review, give us a 5-star rating. Let us know how we're doing. If you like what you hear, please share the podcast with people. If you're watching on YouTube or you watch this archived on YouTube, share the link with people, give it a thumbs up, subscribe, hit that bell so you can get notified when we post more content like this, of course. And Action Figure Adventure is the thing that, Jay and I are talking about. It's the thing we've completed. It's airing exclusively on Jinx TV in Canada, which is kind of part of Super Channel, but it's an amazing platform for everything pop culture. They got a lot of great gaming stuff on Jinx Esports TV, and Action Figure Adventure is part of it. But if you want to see Action Figure Adventure outside of Jinx Esports TV, because say maybe you don't reside in Canada, you can submit a title request to places like Netflix. And I'm going to put a link in the chat right now so you can just let them know that you want to see Action Figure Adventure in your queue. So that's in the chat there for everybody. Jay, this week's icebreaker, okay? A difficult one. Are you set?
I'm ready, brother. Let's do this. Let's go.
Okay. Do you think it's more difficult to complete a loose Barbie collection or a packaged G.I. Joe, a Real American Hero collection?
I would say loose Barbie.
Why?
My first instinct would be loose Barbie. I don't have a lot of experience with loose Barbie. I had a couple of Ken dolls when I was growing up. But just like the little accessories, the necklaces, the little shoes, all that stuff, I would put that up against a loose Real American Hero run for sure. And I don't know who'd win that, but I think the packaged Joe stuff would be easier to get than all the little Barbie stuff. Yeah, that's just my first reaction.
I mean, there's a lot of Joe figures out there for Real American Hero. I don't care if you want to define it, 82 to 94 or even 89, where some people kind of cut it off, as I'm sure HCC788 will chime in with us. I don't know. I think I think a loose Barbie collection would probably be more expensive at the very least.
Yeah.
Uh, some of those Barbies and those exclusive ones done by, you know, very specific designers or specific molds. And like you said, you had a couple Ken dolls. There's like Johnny Depp ones that are like, you know, rare. And once they're on the shelf, they're gone. They're gone.
And now there's Star Wars ones. There's an R2 one, a Vader one. It's funny, the Vader one actually kind of looks like Baroness. But I mean, if you're doing all G.I. Joe versus all Barbie, I still think Barbie would take it. But if you're doing Barbie versus Real American Hero, I think Barbie would be much more difficult.
Yep, I agree. Okay, hey, we're starting off on the same page, Jay.
I can't believe it. I thought for sure you just picked the opposite. Just to pick the opposite.
You know what? I think you're wrong. I think G.I. Joe all package, that stuff is really hard to come by. I think that Fortress package, come on, Jay. You're not getting that. You're not getting that.
Okay, let's move on. Let's move on, partner.
Move on. Okay, so let's get to our guest. That's why everybody's here. Thanks for the turnout. Brian was kind enough to come on, being subjected to this. We talked a little bit about him off the top. Let's bring him on. So, well, let's just do it. There he is. Oh, there he is. Look at that. He's got the scarf as well. Brian, how are you?
Hello.
Oh, wow.
What do you do?
He's a scarf lord too, Jay. Can you imagine that?
So what are your messages to the guests? Yeah, we really got to troll Jay. Let's put a scarf and we'll wear silly hats.
No. In fact, usually it's the other way around. Most of the guests say, is it cool if we wear a scarf and kind of be a part of what you guys are doing? Because the scarves look like the coolest thing ever because it's so high fashion, haute couture. As you say.
I'm a trendsetter. What can I say, man? What do you want?
Well, I'm sorry. Was there a scarf thing going? Because I just happen to be wearing this. This is for my own comfort and fashion.
You have to wear a scarf indoors, Brian. I mean, you just got to do it, right? When you're in the house by yourself, walking around, scarf too. Why not?
Ironically, Jay and I live in Canada, and when he goes outside, even though there's like 4 feet of snow right now, he takes the scarf off and leaves it at the door.
I do.
He's got an inside scarf. Maybe he has an outside scarf. I don't know, but it's mainly an inside scarf from what I understand. This is just what I, wake up to. I just put this on. So I get where you're coming from.
What does this have to do with toys?
Everything, Jay. It's all about the accessories with toys, right? That's where the real value comes from. People, they can get us anywhere.
Accessorizing.
This is the value.
Okay. Well, you guys look fantastic. So keep it up. There you go.
Brian, why don't you do everybody?
And with that, I'm going to take this off.
Oh, okay. Well, that's fine. Now, we're complete. Now you're not complete.
I'm representing the finest here with my T-shirt, the cosplay group, the G.I. Joe cosplay group. So there we go. I don't want to cover up the finest.
Nice. Let me hide that banner since it's running over it just a little bit right now. There we go. Now we can see it a bit more. Brian, why don't you just tell everybody a little bit about what you do? We mentioned that you've got this daunting task of reviewing all the Real American Hero stuff on your YouTube channel. Give everybody that's watching a little bit of a rundown. How long have you been doing this? What is your approach to doing videos? Jay and I know it's pretty in-depth, but I want to hear it in your own words so that our audience can kind of better understand who you are and what you're trying to achieve.
Alrighty. Well, I've been reviewing G.I. Joe toys on YouTube for almost 7 years. It'll be 7 years in April. And I've been collecting a little bit longer than that, but the approach that I take to reviewing is I want to be thorough. I want to place the toys into their context, both their like a real world context as well as the context of where they fit in with the whole toy line. Kind of cross-reference, how different toys are related, and kind of give an assessment. I try to always be fair. I don't love everything, I'm honest when I dislike something, but I feel most of the time there's something positive that can be said about almost everything. But I want my reviews to be thorough enough that if you're thinking about going out and getting the toy, that you will have enough information to decide if that's what you want or if that's what you don't want. I like the idea of having a video review feel like you've had a chance to pick up the toy yourself, to look at it from all angles, almost as if you can hold it in your hand, and kind of get a real feel for it, which is something that you can't really necessarily do in other formats. So that's one of the reasons I think video is so great for toy reviewing. But yeah, I'm trying to do all of vintage G.I. Joe, and by vintage I mean 1982 to 1994. That's a daunting task. It's a bigger task than I thought it would be when I started. But I actually chose that limit as a way of keeping the collection from growing larger than I wanted. That was actually my attempt to limit the scale of my collection rather than just get everything from every era. But just the U.S. releases of 1982 to 1994, that's quite a lot of stuff, and I'm still working on it. But that's the project, and someday the project will be complete.
Is it really going to be complete, though? Does it ever actually end? We talked to Carson from 3djoes.com, and he's finding new holes and alleys to go down so that it doesn't actually end. So are you telling me that your quest will actually come to an end?
I think it will. I'm sticking with a limited scope. So once that's complete, my plan is to, well, I wouldn't rule out maybe looking at some other aspect of G.I. Joe, since I'm the fan, and they're focusing so much on video reviews. Sometimes I have to pass up things like cosplay and things like that, things that I might enjoy doing. So I'll probably explore some other ways of being a fan other than just making video reviews. But I have a plan for a bookend. I started my video reviews reviewing Breaker, 1982 Straight Arm Breaker, which was my first ever G.I. Joe action figure when I was a kid. And I want to finish, have the final video review being 1989 Rock and Roll version 2, because that was the last G.I. Joe figure that I bought as a kid, with the intention of opening it and having fun with it. So those are my bookends. There's a lot in between there. So even though it is a limited scope, we're talking about years and years and years and years and years of content still left to go.
Yeah, I mean, if you're going to pick one line to go complete on, at least you've got a really big line. It's not like you're doing Dick Tracy or Captain Power where you'd be done after a week or so.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I mean, it's daunting. It's one of the reasons I never started, anything like a review channel or a blog or figure photography of any line. It is so overwhelming to me. And so when Jay was basically saying, I really want to get into doing some figure stuff in the community, I think I'm going to start doing my own reviews. I'm like, brother, you're nuts. Have you seen the kind of task that you're up against? And he said, well, there's this guy I found, Hooded Cobra Commander, and he just really speaks to me. Jay, why don't you chime in and talk about that process? And what that was like,
I've talked to Brian Zeroff a lot and praised him a lot in Messenger, and I'm surprised he hasn't blocked me. No. The first review I stumbled across was your Cobra Commander one, and you were kind of just reviewing all the different Cobra Commanders, and I just loved how you took your time and you really researched. And you talked about Larry Hama and the Summo cartoon. You just kind of encompassed everything. My favorite video that you have actually is the one you did. I don't know how many years ago it was, Brian, but it was your behind the scenes, how you showed us, the viewer, how you actually created the videos. It's like an hour. It's over an hour long.
Yeah.
That one is fantastic because I've been doing YouTube only for less than a year now. And so it was really cool to sit there and just watch your process. And it's like, wow, he screws up a lot too on his script, and he has to like edit a ton of stuff as well. Because you're your own worst enemy when you're in front of the camera. With Action Figure Adventure, I'm my own worst enemy, as well as doing the YouTube stuff. It's like, does that sound dumb? Does my voice really sound like that? And you got to go back and do it. So that's one of my favorites. Yeah, man, you're a huge inspiration. Like I've said, you're by far my favorite YouTuber. So it's really wicked you're here. We finally get to talk in person as much as we can.
I'm excited to be here.
Well, I mean, it's a shame because, as you know, Brian, we were slated to meet up with you at Joe Fest in June last year so we could film with you for Action Figure Adventure. Yeah. It was cool that Joe Fest finally got to go ahead in September, but it was pretty hard for us in Canada to get across the border and travel. And, so we're hoping for season 2, and we hope we can rectify that and make Joe Fest. It's in June this year again. Right. So our vaccine rollout is super slow, which means our border openings and all that stuff is going to be up in the air. So we're crossing our fingers that we can make it Joe Fest. If it's not Joe Fest this year, certainly the year after, but that doesn't mean we won't be able to cross paths and try to interview you at some point.
Absolutely.
There's just so many people we want to get to.
Yeah, I'd love to meet you guys in person. It would have been cool to meet you at that Joe Fest. 2 years ago now, but that was a great time. You guys would have loved it, but because of the virus, I ended up not going to the 2019. The 2020 Joe Fest. But yes, they have it coming up in June. I am also crossing my fingers that we're able to roll out some vaccines and that it'll be safe to go. So I'm really hopeful. It's so much fun. It's really awesome to see people like Carson from 3D Joe's and all the people that used to show up at JoeCon. It's just a great time, and I miss it. And I want us to get past this pandemic, please, so we can actually see each other again.
Yeah, I can speak to that. I mean, Rob and I make a career out of road traveling movies and shows, right? So this is what we do. And so for us, it's like, oh my God. For me, and the toy aspect, thank God I'm doing YouTube because I would be going crazy right now. Like, it's just, we're all ready for it to end. Absolutely.
All right, so I'm going to steer us back on track with these questions that I came up with ahead of time. Brian, how have things changed, man, as a collector from what you've seen? Like, where did it start from when you really started identifying as a collector, and what are the trends that you've noticed recently or over that time that's made it not hard or easy, but just interesting? Like, what are the things that you think about when it comes to collecting? And it used to be like this, and now it's like that.
Yeah, I guess I'm a relatively new collector in the grand scheme because I started in earnest in about 2014, and it was in response to a lot of crazy stuff that was going on in my life, and I really needed some kind of outlet, something to kind of make me feel better when life was going pretty bad. And then it kind of spun off into this grand endeavor. But collecting, I mean, one thing I've noticed is the prices have changed. It's become harder to find things that I don't already have. That has become a challenge. I hit all of the local shops. I try to support the local toy vendors. But it's getting harder and harder to find things that I don't already have. My goal is to get all U.S. or in some instances Canadian releases of the Real American Hero line. And I'd say I'm about 2/3 of the way through with that. But that last third is the hardest because it's all this crazy, rare stuff that's the hardest to find. And occasionally I get lucky. But I think that's what I've noticed is that my collection has reached a point where finding things to fill the gaps has become much, much harder. yeah, it's a challenge, but it's okay. It kind of gives me an excuse to go treasure hunting. It gives me an excuse to try to make some connections with toy vendors and speak with some like-minded people. So it's still fun, but it has become quite a bit more expensive in the last couple of years. Prices have gone up.
Does the expense take the fun out of it, do you find?
Sometimes it depends on what it is, because since am insane and I decided to be a completist, occasionally I have to find myself paying a premium for something that I don't love, something that I need in order to fill the gap. But it's not. This is not. We're not talking about Snake Eyes here, right? We're not talking about something awesome like the killer whale. We're talking about some Ninja Force vehicle that nobody cares about.
Ninja.
And it's stupid.
I loved your your review on Carcass and Lobotomax. I don't think I've ever heard you so sarcastic. You were just you love to hate doing that review. I could tell both of those reviews, man. But those guys are ridiculously priced, and I don't think
they are.
I don't think I've ever seen the Star Brigade villains out there in the wild. No.
They are hard to find, and they are ridiculous. I still am trying to track down Predacon, the third of the aliens, but the toys may not be great. They may not be very easy or fun to play with, but it gives it. I think it makes for fun videos. I can joke around a little bit about them, and I can have a good time. And the one that I did for Carcass, it gave me an opportunity to do a collaboration with Captain Foley from Trek Yards, and I love doing collaborations. So sometimes a not so good toy is an excuse to do something else, just kind of fun.
Yeah, I always like to say it's the oddballs that you can have the most fun with, because everybody loves, Duke or Snake Eyes or Storm Shadow. It's like, oh, look, it's Cobra Commander, or Storm Shadow. It's like, oh, yeah, I love it. That was my childhood toy. And then what? It's like, but look at a terrible figure, and you can talk about how it's terrible any which way, including things that may surprise you in the moment. Like, I love the Ninja Force stuff. I love Tiger Force. That's kind of when I had any kind of Joes. I missed everything other than Serpentor and the Night Raven, all through the 80s. So when I was 10 or 11 or so, that's when I started saying, I want to have that Joe, or I want to have that Joe. And it was all the neon pinks and orange and all that crap that most purists just detest. But now looking back on it, I think that's such an interesting, shoot that G.I. Joe went down, because like you said in one of your videos, TMNT is really big at the time. Those colors are just popular across tons of action figure lines. So it's crazy to see how the culture kind of seeps into every different line in one way or another. And not even G.I. Joe, the staunch brand that, is all about American patriotism, red, white, and blue, they can't even avoid the pinks and greens and oranges and all that stuff. It's fascinating to me.
Yeah, and these toys were created to be sold at mass market under the market conditions at the time, and it's a fair thing to keep in mind. And I do try to remember the cultural context for some of these things. I've been to panels at shows where some of the creators and the executives at Hasbro have talked about it a little bit, and they been frank about they were competing against Ninja Turtles and Power Rangers, and that's what they had in mind. I've also had to evolve a little bit, because I'm very much an 80s G.I. Joe fan, and always will be. That's just my era. But I've learned and had to accept the fact that there are people who are into G.I. Joe and love G.I. Joe for the very things that turn me off. And that there's nothing wrong with that. Everybody comes from where they are. So I do try to make an effort, even when I've got a toy that I think is a real stinker. I try to figure out what it is that some person might like about it. I mean, there ought to be something positive that I can say, even about toys that really may turn me off personally.
I mean, like you said, a lot of the worst toys are the ones that are rare and they fill a spot. So that's at least one positive thing you can say. I've got another rare piece. I filled another spot. Yeah, this is horrible, but at least you get a bit of a good feeling with that. It's a good and bad thing. And I mean, turtle collectors know all about that. He-Man collectors know about it. I don't think there's any line that somebody's trying to be a completionist about that doesn't get that. Like, there's no line that has, like, grade A figures all the way through. Jay, would you agree?
Joe was pretty good up until, and Brian, I think we're pretty close to the same age. I think we stopped collecting. Remember one of your videos you said, when did you stop? Like 88, 89? Rock and Roll 2, right?
Yeah, I was actively collecting in 88, and I had kind of tapered off, but I happened to run across like that Rock and Roll version 2 figure in 1989, and I picked that up as my final figure. So, but 88 was really the last year I was truly actively collecting back then.
Yeah, so I liked the 86, 87 stuff. I like Crocmaster. I like Big Boa. I know a lot of Joe fans don't. I liked that kind of supervillain kind of route they were going. And then I stopped, right? Because, you discovered girls and comic books and things like that, and you kind of move on. So getting back into Joe's in like 2000, 2001, I rediscovered all these 90s ones. I was like, wow, like I don't remember any of this stuff. Brian, do you remember the exact moment that you stopped actually playing with toys? This is something Rob and I talk about all the time because we both remember the exact moment where we picked up a figure and it was like, this doesn't really feel right anymore. Do you remember that moment for yourself?
I'm not sure I can pinpoint the exact moment because it's a little bit fuzzy because the last year or so that we were collecting G.I. Joe, we were doing a lot of customizing. So we were breaking the figures apart and we were applying modeling paint to them and reassembling them in whatever configuration. So customizing kept me and my friend, and when I say us, I mean my brother and a couple of our friends, kept us buying G.I. Joe for about a year, maybe longer than we otherwise would have. But it's hard to call that like really playing with the toys. We were being creative, but because of that, it's kind of fuzzy as to when I decided that's it. It's time to walk away from it. But I know that by 1989, I just thought it was kind of cool that they came out with a new version of Rock and Roll. I remember liking that figure back in 1982, so I picked one up, and that was it. I mean, I got it. In fact, you might even say that's the first figure that I got for nostalgic reasons. Right. But by then we weren't really playing with them. We were moved on to other things.
Well, I always like to say play evolves, right? So even now as adult collectors, when we put them on the shelf, we're posing them a certain way. So that's kind of our play. When we're looking at the figure, we're setting up that diorama display. That's play. Customizing, I would say, is certainly play because you're trying to elicit an emotional reaction to your interaction with that figure.
Yeah, I remember not playing with them, Rob. Remember, we weren't playing. But we would still, when we went into Walmart, we would still sneak into the toy aisle. I remember when I was like 17, looking at the toys and looking around to make sure no one was looking at a 17-year-old looking at the action figures.
I don't think there was ever a time when I went into a store with a toy aisle that I never went to the toy aisle. I can never remember trying to avoid it. Like if I was in a store, a Walmart, a grocery store that had a small section, a drugstore, even like a pharmacy where they had those weird dollar store type toys, there'd always be the weird Batman knockoff line or something. I would still go and check it out. I don't know why. I can't explain it, but I've always been drawn to the toy aisle, and it's never been like, oh, well, you know, I'm too old for that, or I'm into girls now, so I won't look at these action figures. I'll look at the action figures. I might just not, you know, tell those girls that I'm trying to pursue.
Exactly.
Brian, when did YouTube really come on your radar for a thing for toys, and what has that journey been like? Because YouTube is something that has always perplexed me. I commend you for sticking to it. I commend Jay for, you know, starting down that path almost a year ago now. I can't wrap my head around how to do it. I don't know anything about it. I make films and documentaries and TV series, and that I understand. But YouTube is this whole other creature. Again, daunting and overwhelming is the word I will use to describe what I think is going on over there. So take us down the YouTube journey that you've experienced so far.
Well, YouTube is the Wild West. I had done YouTube as just a side thing for a long time, well before I started reviewing toys. In undergrad, I was a political science major, and so I had a YouTube channel where I talked about political science and things like that. It was never very popular, but I enjoyed doing it. Back at that time, YouTube was still YouTube. It was about people, you know, getting in front of a webcam or something and just recording whatever they wanted to say. It was before these shows that have great production value and all of that. It was YouTube. So that was my experience with it. But I had been away from it for a while because I was in law school. Then, like I said, things in life were not easy. I was struggling with a few things, and I decided to check YouTube and to see if anybody was talking about G.I. Joe, because I was just looking for a little bit of an escape and looking for something to think about other than my miserable life. That's when I ran across a YouTube channel called FormBX257, a guy named Kevin who reviews G.I. Joe toys. And I watched all of his videos. I pretty much nonstop. And that's what really got me inspired to try the YouTube, to get back to YouTube, but to talk about toys and to talk about G.I. Joe, and to kind of really get into it. I tried to put my own spin on it. I try to put my own personality into it. So I'm trying not to copy what other people are doing. It was kind of a return to YouTube for me. But this has ended up being a lot more successful than anything. It turns out people have more fun watching videos about a guy talking about toys than a guy talking about a political science text. People seem to find that boring, it turns out. It's
this is the humor I'm talking about. So at the top of the show, I talked about like just your style, and it's that dry, tongue-in-cheek, almost British dry wit that you infuse all the time. You'll be giving us a ton of information about articulation or comparing different versions of figures and how part of the leg looks like this, and then you'll like throw a little snide comment like that, and not that it matters because this figure's crap anyways. And then you'll just motor on to the next thing without paying it any mind. And I love it. It's brilliant, and it keeps you so engaged with everything you do.
Well, thank you. And it's just one of the great things about YouTube is it's my show, and if I come up with an idea for something, nobody can stop me. Nobody can tell me no, even though sometimes maybe somebody should. But if any ideas that come into my head, they can make it to the screen. Hopefully some of it is entertaining and funny, but I can't predict that when I'm actually making the videos. It's just, brain to the camera.
Well, I love obviously reviews are the biggest thing that you do on your channel, but I love some of the other hidden gems that you have on your channel too. Like you have a playlist called Action Figure Theater. And as a filmmaker, I love that. And one of the earliest, I think, entries in that is a video with He-Man. Now, Brian, I'm a huge He-Man fan. And I watched that video twice today because it's just awesome. Jay, it's a parody of Bon Jovi's "I'll Be There for You," but it's with He-Man, and Zartan makes a cameo, and there's a My Little Pony figure in there. You called it up.
I was just gonna say,
because that one's a pretty deep cut even for me. That was a long time ago. I almost forgot about that one.
yeah, I thought I was a HCC fan, but apparently I'm not. I didn't even know about this. So,
well, you didn't go to truefan.org to justify all the deep cuts, Jay. I mean,
I'm gonna have to check that out.
Yeah, you know what? You're not a true fan. The badge is in the mail for me.
I'll see you guys later. Okay, see you tomorrow. Bye.
How has YouTube changed? You mentioned it was the Wild West, and it still is, but from going from like talking to your camera with your cell phone or whatever handy cam you got or your built-in webcam, is it still the same thing, or is it basically broadcast television now, and it's the technological arms race to produce the best kind of quality stuff? Is that where it's going?
It's closer to broadcast television now than it used to be. I mean, there are a lot of channels that are basically, TV shows, fully produced with a budget TV shows. And so just your regular schmo like me has to try to get noticed amongst all of that. Yeah, it's definitely changed, and it's definitely leaned more toward higher production values, and which is, I mean, I watch some of those shows. I can't complain. It is what it is. But I still have a nostalgia for YouTube back when it was just a bunch of people just displaying their creativity in video form, and producing just whatever it is that they can that they can imagine. And there's still some of that out there, but it does kind of get crowded out by like the bigger shows and the more produced shows.
Right. I mean, the biggest question and problem I've ever had when it comes to YouTube, and even when Jay and I started to take this show on, was how do you have the balance to maintain, the regimen of putting out, a video a week or twice a week or whatever, the secret is to YouTube, and still maintain all the priorities you have in real life. Like that work-life balance has got to be tough.
Yes, and lately I haven't been able to find that balance very well at all. I recently got a new job. That job is taking a lot of my time and energy, and I just haven't had the time and energy for making videos. I recently put out a video, but it took weeks and weeks to get that thing ready. And I'm working on the next one, and I hope it'll be done, in a week's time, but I don't know. So for a long time, I would just make it a priority, and even when I was tired and I had a lot of other things going on, I would just make videos, and I'd stay up late if I needed to. I'd work all weekend if I needed to get out a video by my self-imposed deadline. I mean, I was the only one imposing the deadline. Nobody else seemed to really necessarily care that it came out exactly at the same time every week. But to me, it was important. But I reached a point where I just can't keep up with it that much. I really wish that I could. So I've had to scale back, and I regret that. There's nothing that would make me happier than to get back to producing at the same level that I was before. But yeah, I've had to scale back, and real life has just kind of taken over and made it a lot more difficult to keep up with producing videos.
That's just part of it, though, right? I mean, that happens when it comes to collecting. You know, you can't always drop $500 or $1,000 on a figure because you got to pay bills.
Yeah.
I think there's an ebb and flow in that. I know Jay's experienced that. I've experienced it all the time. And you know, let me be the first to say that I don't think you should ever feel bad for that. I think you got to do what you got to do that suits you and keeps your bucket full. You know.
Well,
I mean,
yeah.
I was just
go
gonna
ahead.
say, for me, it's really tough, Brian, starting off because yeah, I'm kind of the golden age of YouTube is long gone, and I watch stuff like great shows like Toy Galaxy and stuff like that, and they're so produced, and then you kind of get down on yourself. It's like, well, I don't know how to do that. I don't know how to do those graphic effects, and then I started reading about YouTube algorithms and how you have to be consistent. So like I do a self-imposed deadline where it's like, okay, every Tuesday and every Friday I have to put one out at 7 o'clock, and that's usually what I do. And there's sometimes, and you know what it's like, you wake up or you get up and you're like, I don't want to do this. I can't get in front of the camera and be that guy. You don't have the energy, or you're whatever's happening. Yeah, I just find it very difficult. And for me, it's only been not even a year, and I still have those challenges too. So good on you for keeping it up for so long.
Well, thank you, and good for you for taking on that challenge. And what you will know that most people don't is that it's harder than it looks.
Oh yeah.
It's for every minute that you see on video, for every minute of video that actually makes it to the screen, there's several minutes of work that goes into it.
Yeah.
Plus, it takes time to kind of find your rhythm and find your voice, and kind of find your niche, and that's a challenge. And a lot of people think that this looks fun and I'm going to start it, and they end up lasting for a little while and quitting when they realize how tough it is and what a grind it can be sometimes.
And as you know, at the beginning, there's zero money in it. There's nothing. And even when you hit 1,000 subs, it's very minimal. You have to get like thousands of views to even make a little bit of change.
Yeah.
But yeah, I wanted to actually ask you about Cobra Convergence. So it's the annual celebration of Cobra that you do every summer, and I was lucky enough last year to be a part of that. Where did you come up with that idea, and why strictly Cobra?
Well, one thing back in the olden days of YouTube that I really enjoyed was when my favorite channels did collaborations. And I always wanted to do that. And in 2016, I had this idea that I wanted to do a collaboration with Timmer from Half the Battle, another YouTube G.I. Joe show, and Form BX257, who I mentioned earlier. I just thought it'd be really cool if we did something together. And so I contacted them each independently, and they both agreed that they would want to do a collaboration. So we came up with the idea of, like, all right, we're all gonna do our own video on a Cobra theme. We're gonna do it on the same day, and we're gonna try to make a big deal out of it. And we needed a name for it, and so I came up with the name Cobra Convergence. I thought the name was way too long and not easy to say at all, so I thought it was a terrible name, and we eventually we'd pick a name that's better. But everybody decided, no, that name's fine, so we just stuck with that. So that was like, I don't know if there has been a big collaboration among like the G.I. Joe toy reviewers before, but it's the first one I was aware of. And we had a lot of fun with it. It went over pretty well. So each year after that, we've decided to try to see what we can do to make it bigger, to include more people, to make it a more prominent part of the community and the experience of being a G.I. Joe fan. So it becomes a challenge every year to somehow make this thing bigger. But I'm wanting it to be inclusive. I want it to be something that brings the GI Joe fan community together. Just to talk about Cobra. That not that Cobra is necessarily a special thing to talk about, but it's just an excuse to bring everybody together and to do something together. So that's what it is. It's a big collaborative thing. It now lasts an entire month, and we get as many people involved as we can. We try to find voices in the community, people who are talking about GI Joe, people who are passionate, and try to bring them in and try to make a thing out of it.
I love it. I think it's so cool. And I mean, I should throw it out there. A lot of our episodes of our show, we really focus on what's going on in the toy world and what about this figure release or this news and stuff. I think it's pretty obvious, but let me just say now that YouTube is such an essential part of collecting nowadays, which is why I'm spending so much time, and Jay's coming up with questions about everything with YouTube and your channel, because it's such an inspiration to us. And I think it's one of those pillar channels. I think anybody that collects has one or two channels that they watch, like hardcore, like every time there's a new video that comes out, it's like, bing, okay, my bell went off, time to go watch this. I got the email, there's another video to check out. So if you're not watching YouTube and you're listening to this on Apple or Spotify, or you're checking out our YouTube channel right now, please go check out some of the other creators that are out there too, because they're really adding, like Brian said, a cool voice to the discussion. I don't think it's ever enough just to have one person and one insight on it. It's the differences that I think make collecting fun, and that's when you get to meet new people and you're like, oh, this guy, said this in the chat, or this guy had a really interesting, persona, or she had this cool collection of stuff that I didn't even know existed. So I think it's so important to expose yourself, and YouTube is free, and so many people are doing stuff. It's just awesome. Jay, any other questions you want to throw out there?
I was just going to add to that a bit. Specifically, the GI Joe community in general are some of the friendliest collectors that I've had the pleasure of dealing with. Each franchise group kind of has their own personality, but I will say that Joe is by far the friendliest. Just some awesome people. John, our buddy John, and he helped me get my flag, and he was just so selfless about it. It's like, he got me the most complete one he could, and he wasn't looking to make any money off it, and just it's just awesome, man. And Brian, I used your flag video, by the way, to put mine together. So there you go.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
that video has been the one I probably got the most response on, because people say that, like, hey, I used your video to put the flag together. I had to break down and put the flag back together several times, and I got really sick of it. So I thought, hey, it might help if in video form you had some way to show that exactly how to put the thing back together. So
it's such a cool reference.
That helped.
It's such a cool reference how-to videos within a lot of the stuff. At one point, Jay's like, maybe I should just do a bunch of like playset how-tos. And then I was thinking, maybe, but I don't think the vast majority of playsets are as intricate as the flag. It's like Castle Grayskull pops together and you're like, done.
Yeah.
Like, oh, there's my 30-second video. I don't know if that'll help my algorithm. I better get something else. Yeah.
I did have a question, Brian, with regards to the future of GI Joe toys. I've watched a lot of your streams and stuff, but for everyone who's watching out there, I'm sure they're curious what your thoughts are on the GI Joe Classified series and the future of that.
Well, the Classified series seems to be the future. That seems to be where the focus is. And I was very enthusiastic about the Classified figure when it first series. I'm sorry, when it first came out. I got all of the first wave. I got all of the Target exclusives, but it eventually became clear that most of the time when I would go out hunting for classified toys, I would just be greeted with empty pegs, and that quickly became a lot less fun.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
I've got some on pre-order. I'll still pick them up from time to time, but months and months of trying to find these stupid thing and finding nothing but empty pegs everywhere. It killed my enthusiasm a little bit. Now I know that's not the case with everyone. It's just my personal experience. But it killed my enthusiasm a little bit. But given that they're continuing to put more out and they are making announcements all the time about new characters, I think that is still going to be the wave of the future. I think that's where Hasbro is is really investing, I guess I should say, their design and production money. I know they have this retro line with Walmart. Okay, I'm sorry, retro line.
Yeah.
But that seems to not be the main focus. The main focus is, and I think for the foreseeable future, will be on the 6-inch figure line.
Rob and I were talking about, we both have a bunch of the classified figures, and as much as I love them, the biggest complaint is you're never going to see a Sky Striker, a Night Raven.
Yeah.
It would be hundreds and hundreds of dollars, and where are you going to put it, right? That's the issue, is having Joes without vehicles is a real shame.
Yeah, and that's true. And you may get vehicles, but they're going to be like small, like motorcycles or something like that. Or maybe
never say never, right? Because Masters of the Universe Classics got Grayskull, Snake Mountain, the Wind Raider, the Battle Ram. They got mounts. There was a lot for Masters, and G.I. Joe has got to have at least an equal as fan base as He-Man does. You would think.
Maybe. I feel like the G.I. Joe fan base is a little on the small side. But the hope would be that these newer lines, the retro or the classified, will generate some new interest. They've got a movie that's supposed to come out this year, hopefully. And I think they're hoping that that'll generate some interest. So, if that's the case, if it turns out to really go gangbusters, then you might see something on the scale of a Vamp or a Hiss Tank or something like that. But like a Sky Striker, that'll be a tough one. that would be both very large and very expensive. And I don't know if the G.I. Joe fan base has enough deep pockets to make that feasible. I don't know. I could be talking out of turn here, but either way, I do think they're still going to focus on the 6-inch scale.
I'm going to just segue things awkwardly. We're getting close to our time here. We've got some Patreon questions that have come our way, Brian. So I'd love for you to sit in and chime in on some of these if you'd like it, if you've got time.
Sure.
We want to thank our Patreon backers, of course, Tim, Nathan, Kevin, Bill, Matt, Jay, Danny, Ryan, Chris, Rodney, Scott, Billy, Ben, Kyle, Nelson, and Adam. Thank you guys for your awesome support making this happen and making this all possible. It certainly helps when we reach out to guys like Brian and say, hey, we got people that really support us. Will you come on our show? So thank you guys so much for believing in everything we do. First question comes from Danny. Danny is quite the active questionnaire. He's got a bank of probably 25 questions now, which I love it. He says, is there an action figure line, guys, that you really like, but you think the source material is just awful? Or reverse that, is there a property that you really thought deserved a great action figure line, but what we got was awful instead? So great line, bad cartoon or movie, or great movie or cartoon, but bad toys. Jay?
That's easy. We talk about a childhood favorite of ours all the time, which is Captain Power. And that's the first thing that comes to my mind. I love that show. As cheesy as it is now, I thought the show was great. It was dark and gritty and definitely something kids should not be watching. But the toys were brutal. Some of the worst figures of all time.
Brian, is there a line that comes to mind where you thought, oh, these figures are garbage? It's a shame because that movie was good, or that cartoon was not bad?
I don't know if you necessarily go to the movie as the source material, but I was never a fan of the GI Joe Street Fighter 2 figures. I always thought that Street Fighter 2 fans deserved better than those, and they, I mean, especially the first wave, they were basically just GI Joe Ninja Force figures repainted. And tended to look nothing like the characters from the game. And I always, not that I'm the biggest Street Fighter 2 fan, but I always just thought Street Fighter 2 fans deserved better than that.
Yeah, I would agree with you there. I would agree.
And with the Mortal Kombat figures that are not obviously part of Joe, but are still bad representations of their source material. I think for me, I mean, even though these are some of the iconic figures that Jay, I know you and I both love, I think Secret Wars is pretty disappointing for figures. Marvel's answer to Kenner's superpower, the Secret Wars, like almost no articulation. Like Symbiote Spidey is like all black. He almost has like no detail whatsoever. And same with Daredevil. It's like one glob of plastic. And I mean, they were the best kind of, you know, handheld figures at the time that you could play around with at that 4-inch scale. But still, like, you kind of want more. So it's no wonder that the superpowers kind of won out by comparison, because at least Superman could run and, you know, Flash could, you know, do whatever. And Hawkman had his cool wings, where Spider-Man just sat there like a mannequin in every battle. It's
the worst part about those, Rob, is the Spider-Man figure in particular, and Doctor Doom. I don't know if it was the rubbery plastic they used, but if you touched the chest of Doctor Doom or Spider-Man too much, you would rub the lines off Spider-Man, or the Doctor Doom chest would fade. Iron Man's hearts would fade too, and the superpowers weren't like that. Plus, the superpowers were so bright and vibrant, and they just popped. Every one of them, even if you didn't like Dr. Fate, he was still just wicked to look at. You know, I agree with you there.
That superpower line is like the antithesis of every DC movie that's out now, where it's all like muddied, like grimy, like through like a filter that's been thrown in, like, I don't know, a pile of dirt. Those characters are so bright and comic booky compared to the crap we have now. It would be nice to see a revisit of that. And I guess we got some DC Universe classics not long ago from Horseman and Mattel, but still, those Marvel Secret Wars figures, they're cool, but not fun to play with when they could be. Our next question comes from Bill. He says, "Hey, Rob, hope you all are doing well in 2021. I had a question for the pod if you thought it might be an interesting topic to discuss." Well, clearly I do, Bill, which is why I'm reading it. I'm a classic rock DJ and like to look at things from a music angle, even when it comes to toys and games. Do you guys have a favorite Toyline cartoon theme song? Some of those mid-'80s classics like Silverhawks and Jace were pretty epic. Thought it might be a fun discussion, or maybe a sing-off between you guys. All the best. Love what you do.
Oh, we're not singing off tonight. We need some beers for that, for sure. We're not doing that.
Which tune are you going to do for cartoon karaoke?
I'm not singing anything. My favorite 1980s cartoon theme song is the Mask theme song. Hands down. Hands down. I love it. I love the slow build up, and then it just goes into like rock and cheesiness, man. The Mask song is my favorite.
I'm surprised you're saying this, because what I'm actually going to suggest, I thought 100% was going to be yours, and that's the theme from the G.I. Joe movie. That opening track is so epic.
It's cool.
It's like it's cool. Full on, man.
And like, I also like Lion's theme for Transformers the movie too, but that's pretty rock.
Yeah, those are pretty rocking covers.
I'm going with Mask. Brian, what about you? What do you say?
All right. Well, you already stole my ideas. The only other theme song but it didn't have a toy line. I keep thinking of Pole Position, that 80s cartoon, which had an awesome theme song, but I don't think they ever had any toys for it, so that doesn't count. So
we can give you a pass since we looked at your notes and stole your answers. My other vote would have been for the Turtles theme song from the 80s. That's a pretty like high energy track, and cut to that anime style was really cool, I thought. So Brian, you can take my G.I. Joe movie answer.
Oh, thank you. I take your answer. Your answer is mine.
I'll re-edit this and nobody will know. I'll take the time to do that. Nobody will know. It'll be fine.
Perfect.
It's time for Action Figure Spotlight, Brian. I never told you about this, but if you've got a figure that you'd like to discuss or kind of showcase, a little bit of show and tell, we kind of end the show every time with that. Jay, do you have a figure ready?
I prepped Brian for that, so I think he's got something. I let him know.
Oh, you're having cheater conversations, huh? I get it.
Yeah,
Okay.
yes. So I was going to bring Brian in your honor. I didn't, but I was going to bring Stalker because I know he's one of your favorite from the G.I. Joe 26 comic 26 pack. I didn't bring him though. I thought I would switch it up a bit, and Rob's gonna love this one here. So I found this guy actually.
Ah, wicked.
So this is the Masters of the Universe Origins She-Ra, and She-Ra is my favorite character in the He-Man line, and I can't believe I actually found her. And Rob's gonna say, "Well, why don't you open her?" Well, I'm not opening She-Ra, but we can look at her through the bubble.
Okay. You're
look at her through the
not
bubble.
opening. Yeah.
Look at her. She's so awesome.
You said you were not going to open the Classics one in Swiftwind in Adora because you spent so much dollars on it. That was $15. You're going to find another one.
I'm not going to open it.
Are you going to?
I have a nice carded She-Ra collection, and I think I'm going to keep it that way. That's it.
Whoopsie do.
That's the end of it.
Whoopsie do. Brian, I'll let you go next. What you got? Okay. Let's see what's the dolly you've got that you've pulled from your shelf.
Okay, so you like Ninja Force, do you?
I do.
Allow me to introduce you to the Ninja Force Red Ninja. This is my favorite. The Red Ninja. That's what he's called. It says so on the file card. This extremely red ninja, he's got many colors, including kind of an orangey pink color and a blue and some black. So he's got lots of colors. I can't think of any colors that he doesn't have.
Right.
So that's my show and tell this time is this is your Ninja Force 1993 red. I say red ninja.
Maybe that's just like a clever name, you know, when they call big guys tiny and he's like a ninja because he's like not like that. You know?
It would have been a no-brainer just to do version 1 of Storm Shadow and make him red, and it would have looked exactly like Red Ninja.
Yes,
or just
they use dice for some reason. Like I don't understand why.
Jay, since the boiler room is gone behind me, which I'm surprised you didn't remark at the intro, but Freddy's boiler room has disappeared. My pile has kind of shrunk that I have over here.
Okay.
So I've only got 2 figures over here, so you got to pick 1 or 2.
Let's go with number 2.
Number 2. All right. So this is a San Diego Comic-Con International exclusive because I'm a big exclusive hero. And this is from the 2002 Masters of the Universe line. And this is Keldor. So they never released Keldor for the line before. I'm trying to get that glare right.
There you go. Perfect.
And so this was the Comic-Con exclusive. What's really cool about him is he comes with the vial of acid over here in his hand and the alternate head. So there's the Skeletor head there. And then over here, you have like a half fire head, kind of getting burned and whatnot. But this is the first Keldor figure that they ever released. Everybody that's listening, if you don't know, Keldor is who Skeletor was before he was Skeletor. So you can kind of see that change. And you can see how the Classics figure took inspiration from it, obviously, as well. But this was a figure that when I first saw it, I was like, oh, man, how come this cannot be at retail? How come I didn't even want to venture on eBay, but I got lucky on a claim sale on Facebook that I was able to get this. So Havoc Staff, his double sword that falls apart or comes apart in 2, the vial. Cool figure. Again, all those 2002 He-Man exclusive characters are awesome. She-Ra, Faker, Keldor, just good stuff.
And what's fantastic is the very first episode of that is the origin of Skeletor. You see how he fights King Randor. It's just that show. I can't say enough about the 2002 Masters of the Universe cartoon. Is so awesome. So good for you, man. That's a good score.
Thank you. That'll do it for another episode of the Jay and Rob Toy Show. Brian, let everybody know where we can find you on the social medias in the interweb.
You can find me on YouTube. Just search for Hooded Cobra Commander 788 or HCC788. You can find me that way. I'm also on Facebook under Hooded Cobra Commander 788, and I'm on the Twitter under HCC788. So find me any of those places, and if you're so inclined, subscribe to the YouTube channel.
And Jay, where can we find you?
Again, it's real simple. I'm just Jay Bartlett, plain old Jay Bartlett on all social media platforms and YouTube. There are two Jay Bartletts. One is an exorcist. That is not me, and that joke never gets old. But they're for real. Brian is an exorcist named Jay Bartlett too, and he's far more popular than I am, so I'm a little bit jealous. But that's where you can find me.
I had the choice between watching one of your vids this week and watching one of the Exorcist vids because I got notified for both because I subscribed to him. not give him the count, but I'm always interested to see what he's going to put out. I mean, do you not want to subscribe to an Exorcist to see like what the next video is?
I feel like I'm betraying myself if I do that, so I can't.
I'm telling you, when we get up to, I don't know, let's call it 1,000 subs or something like that, or more Patreon backers, we'll set a goal. We're gonna have him on, and there's another Rob McCallum too. He's a storyboard artist in Toronto, and people always email us thinking we're the other person. So we're gonna have a doppelganger episode at some point.
Hey,
that's where we're going.
Let's do it. I'm up for it.
Well, thanks everybody for watching and listening. Again, if you're listening on the audio side on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, drop us a review, tell your friends, let us know how we're doing. If you're on YouTube, click subscribe, give us a like, give me that thumbs up. I want to thank our guest, Hooded Cobra Commander 788. Thank you so much, Brian, for coming out to do this. A lot of fun. As we say at the end of every episode, for the love of toys and the warmth of scarves, take care of yourselves and each other.